everybody. I think we are online here. Facebook always confuses me with how long it takes for the little blue line to stop spinning. There we go. Now we're good. Okay. Good to see everybody. Welcome again to another session with me. I've got a couple questions here. A few. I got like 3 or 4 questions, but they're all really dense questions. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to think about in each one. So let's just get started. Okay, so first question is from Brandon Banks. When is the opportune time to seek investors to grow my business further? When is the opportune time to seek investors to grow my business further? That's a great question. I'm going to read the rather lengthy description because I think it's relevant so that everybody understands the context. So let's get into that. So Brandon says, I operate an e-commerce order fulfillment warehouse. The end of 2021 will be our 3rd complete year in business. Year 1, revenue was $86,000, no employees, operated as a sole proprietor. Year 2, revenue $236,000, added 2 full-time order processors during last 2 months. Year 3, projected to close 2021 at $500,000 in revenue. 2 full-time employees until September. Now have 3 full-time and 2 part-time employees. May cease after Q4. The e-commerce space is massive. We are considered a micro 3PL in Canada, but this revenue has been obtained solely by word of mouth and our website being found online. Zero marketing has been completed. I have grown the business at the pace I can handle at the time and with minimal initiated capital injections of funds by myself personally. I'm a retired federal government employee. All growth thus far has been funded from within. The business is there. There are numerous e-commerce companies looking to expand their footprint in Canada, but we continue to outgrow our facility, which halts our growth. We have moved twice in 3 years. I've been hesitant to take on any larger warehouse spaces until the revenue justifies the overhead. My goal after this Q4 is to start developing an on-site day manager to free up me further day-to-day operations and to also explore options to step the business up into larger operations. My question pertains to the right time to seek investor capital to take the next step. If I had funding to move to a larger facility that would accommodate us longer than a year, hire additional support staff, build management structure, and acquire the needed equipment to operate and fit up the warehouse, and then develop a marketing strategy to target higher volume e-commerce sellers, I feel we could become a very reputable company in Canada, or I could just continue to slow grow the company at the pace it's been doing so far. But that's not my goal, and I'd love to build this out into a 7-figure and beyond operation so that I become the business owner and not so much the self-employed worker. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and I seek guidance on this. Brandon, you are in a great business right now. I have a friend who's in a very similar business down here in Florida, a friend who I know through another entrepreneurial organization. And he just completed a funding round with a valuation of $300 million. And that's no joke, $300 million just a few months back. And he's in your exact same business. So if you're talking about growing your business and you're talking about it, you're in the right space at the right time. So in your particular case, when is the most opportune time? If you are successfully in that space and you can successfully sell in that space, meaning you can, if you have the capacity like you're describing, you'd be able to up your marketing efforts and you'd actually be able to grow your revenue fairly quickly and fairly reliably. You've got good sticky clients. You've got good margins. You're doing everything the way that you should be doing it. I would think that you could grow your business right away with and need to bring on investors in the way that you're describing. You're in a hot market right now as far as investors are concerned. So now this happens to be where you're at. Other people in other businesses might have different criteria before it makes sense for them to start thinking like that. But given where you're at, it's definitely something to consider and to think about. So I would say, reach out to me and we can talk about it more. But whenever, and this goes for everybody to make it more general, once you know that you can drive revenue, step 1, and that your revenue is profitable, like that the revenue you're creating actually has good margins in it and everything, that's generally from an investment perspective where I like to start to look at things. Sometimes people will look at things before that, but I like to see the ability to sell, and like that you've kind of proven product market fit or service market fit, and that your margins are good and your customers are sticky, and like that there's a little bit of a history there to be able to kind of make that kind of look like you're onto something. So yeah, so I would say that's kind of usually where you kind of like look at it, and it sounds like that's where you're at just from what you described, and you also happen to be in a really good market, Brandon specifically. Cool, but everybody else, and you know, anybody who's ever thinking of bringing on investment, sometimes people get a little too investment happy, especially like in tech spaces. Um, if you're, you know, you could spend a lot of time trying to raise money. I like to look at it like prove your business model first, prove your revenue. If you prove all that stuff out first, raising money gets a lot easier and frankly a lot cheaper. If you're going to be an early investment person, you're going to raise money early. If you could get anyone to give you any money, they're going to give you a really bad deal on it. When I say bad deal, I mean like they're going to want a big part of what you're doing for taking the risk, because they're going to just assume that it's a good possibility they're going to lose all their money. So they're putting down lots of bets like that, and so they need whichever one works to pay off big. So they have to have big ownership in each one of those ventures. So if you want to maintain more control and more ownership in your company at an investment round, the tighter you are with your systems, your processes, your customer mix, and you know all this stuff ahead of time because you've kind of gone through it and tested and succeeded and failed in that process, that gets you a much cheaper capital investment when you do go raise money. So, cool. That's a great question. Jenny Dawson. What takes priority in spending wisely for growth in sales starting out as a full-time business owner? As of 11/1, I'm a full-time entrepreneur and focused on growing my yin yoga and sound healing business. With limited funds as I'm starting out, I need guidance on how best to invest in the growth of my business, Zen Soul Balance. With the holidays just around the corner, I want to capitalize on opportunities by offering unique experiences for groups and businesses in the San Diego area and beyond. My challenge is reaching a broader spectrum of people. I'm reaching out to event planners, joining organizations, and networking as much as possible. And I also feel the need to advertise. What takes priority in spending? Online social media ads. I've tried this in the past and have found it to be ineffective. What are your thoughts on this? Local newspaper magazine ads for exposure, Groupon deals, sales training with a mentor. Any other suggestions? I'd love to hear. Thank you so much. Great question. Yeah, so this is a good question. Look, we all have to deal with sales. It doesn't matter also if you're just starting out or if you're just trying to grow from the plateau to the next level of your business. You know, you might be trying to go from 0 to 1 million, or you might be trying to go from 20 million to 50 million. The same thought process kind of applies. So you're in the right mindset. There's a lot of options in which ways to grow a business. You need to test as much as possible. So I would say take whatever resources you have financially and make them last as long as possible. I guess that goes without saying, but maybe not. Sometimes I see people, pick one method, whether it's digital ads or it's, whatever, magazine ads, whatever it is that you're going to spend money on. And they go all in on it. Yeah, I'm going to spend, 80% of my budget in this area because this is what everybody does. And I know somebody who was successful with this. And that's not the way to go. You want to spend little tiny increments because I guarantee you the first thing you spend money on is going to fail. I guarantee you the second thing you spend money on, it's going to fail. But each time it fails, and each time you spend that money, you learn something. So the key here is knowing how to track the success of it. If someone proposes a marketing strategy or an advertising strategy, whatever it is, you're not Coca-Cola. You don't need brand awareness. Brand awareness isn't going to do you any good. You're going to spend lots of money on it. If anybody sees it, you need outcomes. You need something that's going to produce a result. So you need to spend money and create a result. Spend money and create a result. And there's going to be steps. You can do this on a spreadsheet. There's going to be steps in this process. There's going to be, use digital ads as an example. There's going to be, we spend $1. We get somebody to fill out a form, let's say. That person fills out the form. We get 10 people to do that. Cost us $10 to get 10 people to do that. Now, of those 10 people, turns out 3 of them were not really our customer. 3 of them don't really respond to any contacts. We don't really know who they are. And then 1 of those 10 move forward. So at the point that that person moves forward to the next spot, you've spent $10 to get them to move forward. And then you do that through your whole entire sales process, step by step by step, until somebody finally buys something. Whatever it is you're trying to get them to buy, or whatever you're trying to get them to do. Sometimes you're not trying to get them to buy anything. Sometimes you're just offering them a, come in for a free session, or you're trying to just get them to do something that's going to give you whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. And then if you keep track of it like that, you'll know, let's say it was a free session. You'll know that it cost you $30 to give away a free session, aside from whatever the cost of the session is. So now you can compare that method against other things because you boiled it down to dollars. And if you do that on every type of advertising or marketing or sales effort that you're doing, if you can boil it down to this thing produced this result and it cost me this amount, you can now compare things. Because if you're trying to get this result, you can see, these things cost me $30, these things cost me $50, these things cost me $10. Oh, cool, I'll do the cheaper one and I'll just do more of those. That's going to be the effort that you have to put in. And remember, your time costs money, going to events costs money because it's time and it's money a lot of times. You've just got to be aware of all of these different efforts that go into things. So something that appears to be free sometimes may actually not be free. If you stand in the corner handing out flyers that you printed out on your computer and you stand there for 8 hours and you could say, oh, I did this and it didn't cost me anything. Well, it cost you 8 hours of time. Like, even though the printing didn't cost you much, but it cost you 8 hours of time. Even if you were just like paying somebody to do that, it's going to cost you at least $10 an hour or something, right? So you're spending $80 on it. And did you get any results? No, I had to do that for like 3 hours or 3 days before I got one person to do it. Okay, cool. So that's $80 times 3. That's $240, and I got a result. So was it really free or was it $240? And that doesn't even take into account the opportunity cost, which would not be the direct cost of you doing that at the current market rate, but it would be the opportunity cost that you lost by not spending your time as the entrepreneur doing something at a higher value when you could have paid somebody else to be standing there in the corner. So that's kind of the process of going through that. Is you've got to you're going to have to analyze it. There is no one size fits all for this question. You've got to take your best guess and keep track of the results, and not just the end result. Yes, did it work or did it not work? But each step along the way. Notice where the people you're talking to stop engaging, where they leave, and then put a check mark on your Excel spreadsheet that says we're losing them at this point and we're spending this much money to get them to this point. So do we tweak it and say we've tweaked the process and we can now get them over that hurdle and keep them moving? Or do we say we've already spent too much per person just to get them to this point, so it's not worth trying to get them further, given what our price point is on our product or service, whatever it is. Cool. I know that's kind of like a wide answer to that question, but that goes for everybody. Track your process. Understand how much it cost you at each stage of your sales process, at each stage of your marketing process. Be very, very aware of that. That is the name of the game when it comes to growth. Okay, next question. Joe Nugent. How do I figure out how much I can pay someone for a sales position that is salary plus commission? I own a home inspection company. I'm adding an outside business development position and unsure how much I can afford to pay them with a salary plus a bonus. So this goes into like pro forma work. For those of you who don't know what that is or need a refresher, a pro forma is basically like a pretend pretend financials based on what you expect your operational structure to look like. So you basically make a whole bunch of assumptions on what your business is going to look like operationally, and then you kind of forecast what your financials will look like if it looks like that. So to answer your question about what is it salary plus commission, I don't know what it is specifically in your business, but if I sat down and figured it out, I would probably look at, well, what's your margin on the products you're selling? You can't just say, oh, it's 10% sales commission. Because what happens if you're selling a product that only has 20% gross margin? That means if you give your sales guy 10% of gross revenue, you're giving him 50% of your gross profit, right? So you're not going to, and you might make that choice, right? Like that might be a choice you make to do, but I don't usually see that. I usually see your commissions representing a much smaller portion of gross profit than 50%. That seems like a lot. So you've got to really understand the thing you're selling, what's your margins on that thing, and then once you know that, you can say how many of those things do I need to sell in order to cover my overhead, which you can kind of dump your sales guy's salary into your overhead at that point, plus a commission. So you kind of lay all that stuff out on a spreadsheet, and then it'll tell you what you're able to pay or not pay. And then now you can compare that to market too. People don't realize that sales of a product or service and all that effort that goes into selling to your customer, there's a little bit of a lot of it's the same relationship that you have with your employees. Your employees are essentially, you're kind of selling to them too. Like they're a supplier and you're a buyer at that point. You're like supply and demand. You're demanding labor, and they're supplying labor. But at the end of the day, there's a market for that labor, just like there's a market for your product that's determined by supply and demand. So on the employment side, it's the same exact thing. You know, you've got to be able to structure your pro forma in a way that aligns with the market for labor just as much as you have to align with the market for your product in terms of pricing. So I might do a pro forma that says, yeah, my sales guy, based on my pro forma and the profit I want to make and all these different things, I can pay my sales guy $3,000 a month plus 10% commission. Well, the market in my area and in my industry may be $8,000 a month and 15% commission. And so if that's the case, I'm probably not going to find a sales guy, worth anything for $3,000. If I do, maybe I'll get lucky, possibly, maybe train them up somehow. But it's just good to keep all that stuff in mind, So that's why if you map everything out, you're able to. If you map everything out, you're able to kind of make those decisions and really start to compare what you're doing and how it compares to the rest of the world. So pro forma work is very important and super helpful in decision making. You're never just pulling it off the top of your head then. It also keeps you from getting really royally screwed at the end. After you've pulled stuff off the top of your head, things start to work, and then you realize that you are paying too much, paying too little. Your margins on your product are no good. I've seen that a lot of times. I've seen people grow businesses. Revenue grows really, really fast, and they're super excited because revenue is growing quickly. And then they realize that they have this multi-million-dollar business that's never been profitable and never will be profitable because the reason they were growing so fast is because they were mispriced. So they were capturing a lot of the market because the price was low and lower than anybody else, for example. So they got a lot of revenue, but they didn't make any profit. So being aware of the underlying financials of your business right from the beginning and planning for that is super valuable. Okay, last question. Allison Kayanagi. how do I get leads to call or email back about scheduling a call to discuss their needs and how you can help them? I have a digital marketing agency. I've been running some great lead funnels for our business and have been flooded with leads. Unfortunately, I haven't had much success with getting these leads to email or call me back to schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation to better assess their needs and how we can help. In my email, I leave a calendar link to book a call, and in my calls, I clearly explain that we can schedule a time that better fits their needs. I even text them and leave voicemail if I'm unable to catch them at a good time. I've only had a few good leads book a call with me, but feel like I'm missing out on all the other leads that have come in recently, since I can't get them to book a call with me. Thank you for your help and time in advance. Cool, great question. So a couple things on this. We've got a lead machine. Sounds like it's working. We are generating leads. We're generating people who fill out a form, is the impression I'm getting. So they fill out a form and they say, yeah, I want to talk to you. So now you've got that lead. So my first question is, how much does that lead cost you? So know that, so that you can basically say, yes, that lead cost me $1. So cool. So we fill up our database on one day. Let's say we ran this campaign. We filled up our database and we got 100 leads. So we spent $100. And now, after following up with all of them with our methods, telephone, emails, the calendar link that they can fill out themselves, we know that we got 100 of those. We know that 3% of those, I'm just making this up, 3% of those are going to actually book a call with us and talk to us. So what does that mean for what we've been talking about? What that means is that each time you schedule a meeting, it costs you 1/3 of $100. So think about that for 1 second. We got 100 leads for $1 each, so we spent $100. 3% of those actually follow up with us within, let's say, the next first 48 hours. So we got 3 leads out of the 100, so 1/3. So 1/3 of the $100 is what it costs us to book a meeting. So basically in that case, it's like $33 or whatever. So now we know that it's $33. So how many meetings then do we have to have in order to generate a sale? Well, let's say we have to have 10 meetings like that. So now we end up with $33 per meeting. It's going to take 10 of them before we close a meeting. So therefore, it costs us $333 to close a new customer, which might be great depending on your price point. So now you've got those that responded to you. Now you got that whole list of other people who didn't respond to you. And we want to lower our cost per acquisition of a new customer acquisition cost. We want to lower that. And so we have this big list of people who said they were interested but then never followed through. So that's where your drip campaigns come in. That's where your databases, where you're sending them helpful information. That's where you're trying to engage them on Facebook, on LinkedIn, in a very like natural sort of way. You've got to stay in front of them. I have a friend who has a company who that's really all he does. He doesn't really do the lead gen. He does the, as you give me the leads, as you give me stuff, we feed it into our system, and then we manage that entire process for you to convert more of those. So remember, we had 100 leads. 3 of them moved forward into a call. The rest didn't. So that leaves us with 97 leads to go into this process. And if we can convert another 3 or 4 over the next couple months of those 97, we just halved our customer acquisition cost. Because now instead of having 3 move forward into the next phase, we actually got 6 just over a longer period of time. So it's really valuable to think through those things, that people might not respond right away. If you're getting some to respond, that's good, and then it's just an effort to keep trying to, so, to take that database of contacts, of leads, and convert them more over a period of time. It's also possible that your lead sources aren't good, right? So like that's another way to A/B test again. So once you know this and you have kind of a standard benchmark that out of 100, 3% will move forward within the first 48 hours, you now then can test your lead sources differently, right? So you can say, when I bring in leads from this source, it's 3% move forward. When I bring in leads from this source, it's 10% that move forward. So like, that's a good thing to do too, to try to sort out, or maybe look at those 3 that did respond. What do they have in common? That's kind of a way to look at it backwards. Well, it actually turned out that those 3 out of the 100 were all like in the same category, and as such, since they were in the same category, maybe you target your funnel at the top differently so that you can get more of those, and maybe increase that from a 3% to a 10% to a 15 to a 20%, because you're kind of like eliminating people at the top based on some other category or something that you've identified. So it really comes down to analyzing and having enough volume of leads to do that. If you just get 3 or 4 leads, you're not going to be able to figure any of this stuff out. You really got to get it into like a system. Like, okay, this week we're generating this many leads, we've produced this result, and then you try to tweak different parts of it to adjust the result and to lower that customer acquisition cost because you're tracking it all along. Okay, that's it for me. I don't have any other questions. It was good to see everybody. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekends. Stay warm for those of you who are in colder places. It's getting cold now. And we will see you next time. Have a good one.